What is going on? Good morning out there, world. It's your boy Tommy on the spot, and we are, as we sit here today, just a little under 3 weeks away from the Royal Rumble 2019. And when I think about the Royal Rumble, I always think about the Royal Rumble match. I think about 30 men in the ring coming in at timed intervals and trying to outlast 29 other competitors for a chance to go to WrestleMania and wrestle for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. 20 years ago, though, I think of pretty much brutality at its finest, if you will. I think of Mankind winning the World Wrestling Federation Championship for the first time in the beginning of 1999 and then defending that championship against The Rock. Welcome to today's edition of the Watchalong Wrestling Podcast, where we'll travel back 20 years and rewatch the Royal Rumble 1999, No Chance in Hell. Hello, everybody. I am Tommy on the spot. Thanks so much for checking us out here today. Excited to be back here with you guys. It's been a lot of fun here on the channel. Thank you all so much for tuning in the other day to my live stream of New Japan Pro Wrestling Wrestle Kingdom 13. It was a lot of fun to get on there and talk with you guys about that and to watch that show together in the middle of the night. That was crazy. It was a lot of fun, though, and really cool show. We'll be back here all week on the Watchalong Wrestling Podcast and really all year as we gear up for the Royal Rumble and beyond. It's an exciting time to be a wrestling fan. Tomorrow is the first live Raw of the year. So I figured, why not? Let's go back today. Let's start our week off right. And if we time this perfectly, I'll even get you out before kickoff. So let's check it out. We're going to go ahead now, and we're going to watch the Royal Rumble 1999, and we're going to talk about everything leading up to that show. So let me just scooch this over just a little bit. Okay, perfect. And here we go. So Royal Rumble 1999, we're going to watch this in full here, and of course you can watch along on the WWE Network. So I'll give you guys a little bit of time to go ahead and gear up for the Royal Rumble. Go ahead and start that up on your channel. Get that going on the WWE Network, and we'll be able to watch along together. So here we go, and I should probably set the stage here for this because one of the best things about the Rumble, especially in doing a show like mine, is that you're able to go back and relive some of the really cool build-up to a lot of these different shows. All of the different Raws are on there. All the SmackDowns at some point will be on there. They weren't there yet. But in 1999, one of the cool things that I noticed on the network is that the Sunday Night Heats are on there. So I've watched everything leading up to this show. At this point, I'm chomping at the bit. I feel like it's 20 years ago. We're going to go back. I'm legitimately hyped for the show. We'll be able to go back, watch everything. And as we go through the show, not only will I provide you guys with a little bit of commentary, but I'll talk about what was going on back in 1999 so that you get a sense for what it was like to be a fan back in the middle of the Attitude Era when WWE is at its absolute peak. It's some of its hottest time in the history of the company, and we'll be able to go through that and have fun as we rewatch. So I'll let you guys do that while you guys are getting it set up. Remember to leave a like and also hit that subscribe button here on Watch Along Wrestling. That definitely does help a lot, and I love following along and chatting with you guys over on Twitter. You can follow me over there at WatchWrestlePod as well. All right, so I'm going to give you guys a second to go get geared up. This show, just so you know, that's for whatever reason you decide you wanted to watch along with the family on a Sunday morning, this might not be the show to do it. I have not seen this on the network yet, but this particular show is rated TVMA. So not only are you getting your usual kind of the graphic that pops up, but you're legitimately getting a warning folks that this show is TVMA. Obviously, when we get to The Rock and Mankind, that match is absolutely brutal. So let's get into it, though. So let's have fun with this, and we're going to get started now and hit the button. I'm already at 3 zeros. Hopefully, you guys are already there as well. So here we go, and we're going to go at 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And here we go, the Royal Rumble. Well, there we go. All right, so Royal Rumble 1999, WWE, January 1999. Obviously, just 20 years ago yesterday, Mankind wins the World Wrestling Federation Championship for the first time. Matter of fact, I think WWE might have put up something either yesterday or the day prior, going back and following Mankind around as he revisits the building that he goes and does and won the title in. But let me bail out. Let me let you listen to the beginning of the tournament here, of the piece rather here.
There is no chance in hell. Get me some. I will know that host at 316 says I just whipped your ass.
No. All right. 10-10-220. Do you guys remember 10-10-220? You'd go ahead and you'd make a collect call, and you'd be able to charge back the fees of the collect call by dialing 10-10-220 before you put that in. Wow, the days of 10-10-220, 10-10-321. The show here from the Arrowhead Pond in Anaheim, and I did have this pulled up. I'll pull it back up. The show, 14,816 people in attendance. You will notice if you're a longtime fan or any sort of fan these days of WWE, the theme song for this Royal Rumble was indeed No Chance in Hell. The theme song that was Vince McMahon's theme song way back in the day. And it's still Vince McMahon's theme song to this day. So it's one of these things that's pretty cool. This is the debut of that theme song. And it starts off as the theme song for Royal Rumble 1999. And it stayed with Vince McMahon ever since. So pretty cool stuff. Obviously, look at the crowd. Every single person there is amped up. Everyone's got a sign. Everyone is flipping off the camera there behind Michael Cole. And you'll notice Michael Cole is doing commentary for this show along with Jerry Lawler. This is during a really tough time for Jim Ross. He had lost his mother. And then right after losing his mother, he had a bout with Bell's palsy. And so this actually ends up being a situation where he's out for another extended period of time. Here's Road Dogg. I'll let you listen to the D-O-double-G. Big fan of spelling things, is he not? All right, so let's listen to Road Dogg here before he gears up with his non-title match with the Big Boss Man.
Let's make some noise up in this business. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Generation X, proudly brings to you its WWF Hardcore Champion, the Road Dogg, Jesse J, the Badass Billy Gunn, the new Egg Outlaw.
All right. So this is during a period of time where they are trying to branch off and develop single stars out of the members of Generation X. Road Dogg is in the middle of his reign here as a hardcore champion, and he's having some of the most entertaining matches on the entire show, in my opinion, every week on Raw. This is during the period of time where the Hardcore Championship is still a pretty well-known new concept and getting a lot of time each week on Raw. This is during the period of time where they're having matches that dip out into the outside area, dip out onto the streets. Just a couple weeks prior to the Royal Rumble, Road Dogg has a match. I want to say it was with Al Snow. I think it was with Al Snow. And they battled out into the outdoor area where it was snowing. And Road Dogg hit Al Snow with a pile driver onto a wooden crate outside. So Road Dogg is very, very much involved with the Hardcore Championship. And he really did a lot, in my opinion, to get the Hardcore Championship established as a focal point of Raw, and goes almost as an unsung hero. I feel like when a lot of people think of the Hardcore Championship, they think of Mick Foley, they think of Crash Holly. You don't hear too many people mention Road Dogg, but I think that the Hardcore Championship really allowed him to establish himself as a single star. Here's Boss Man. This is corporate Boss Man, so he's in the he's almost in Shield gear for some of you more modern fans, and he's one half of the tag team champions with Ken Shamrock. This is right when the corporation is running roughshod over WWE, and really a lot of factions are still running roughshod over WWE. You had DX, You had the corporate team. You had the now forming Ministry of Darkness. We're going to talk about the Ministry a little later on. They're still in its infancy. You have the oddities that are still there. They're kind of on their way out, but they're still there. You have Kai and Tai, not yet. They're not yet. Kai and Tai, right? They're still the bigger group of Kai and Tai. Eventually, they become strictly a tag team, but at this point, we're still a faction. So there's a lot of different types of factions here. And Road Dogg's getting really over with his mic work as well. The crowd absolutely loves him. Comes out, and you heard him just must have dropped the word bitch about 100 times and spelling everything out. But for whatever reason, on this show, the corporate team just decided to make this a non-title match. I don't understand the point of that. Bossman was a tag champ, and you would have thunk he would have wanted an opportunity to get the hardcore championship, but he didn't, I guess, because the corporate team made this clear that they were going to keep it with Road Dogg and keep it to an extent that they decided not to have the title on the line. So Road Dogg is there. Road Dogg egging on the crowd here on the early going as Bossman throws a little bit of a tantrum. For some of my football fans out there, this show is exactly 1 hour and 43 minutes long. So 2 hours, 43 minutes long. So we'll be able to go through everything and hopefully still get you out in time for the kickoff. If you guys are a fan of football, Chargers and Los Angeles Chargers, Baltimore Ravens will be kicking off today around 1 o'clock, 1:10, I think. I think at 1:10 is when the kickoff, so we'll get you out right before kickoff, and then you'll be able to sit in. You start your day off with a little classic wrestling and then sit in for some football after that. I mean, it doesn't get much better than a day like that. So big boss man, Irish whips Road Dogg into the corner, and then a big splash into the corner. Boss man had, it really looked like when Boss man returned and joined the corporate team that he was destined to eventually have a run either going for the title or challenging Austin for the title, but it never really materialized. He fell down the card pretty soon after that. He'd eventually move his way back up the crowd, and by the end of 99, actually main events the final pay-per-view of 99, at least goes for the championship. He's not the main event, but against the Big Show as he flips off a fan there. The fan is waving his middle finger back at him. Bossman goes for another splash and, is hung up to dry there as Road Dogg gets out of the way. Bossman had really slimmed down at this time, too. For those of you guys who do not know, he had basically at this point been enshrined as kind of the henchman for the corporate team and really for Vince McMahon, kind of that head of security, if you will. And the corporate team, as we'll see throughout the show, consisted at this point, as Road Dogg humps the face of Bossman, axe handle down to the lower area. Now Bossman goes for a clothesline. Road Dogg ducks. Nice drop kick from the D-O-double-G. The corporate team at the time was Vince McMahon, Shane McMahon. Then you also had the Big Boss Man. You had The Rock, who was your world champion. Big Boss Man, Ken Shamrock, who were your tag team champions, and Ken Shamrock coupled as your Intercontinental champion. Then you had Test, who had just started out. He was very early in his run. And then you obviously had Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe, the Stooges, and that would be the corporate team. Whereas DX at this time is still at its peak. You have Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, Triple H, Chyna, and X-Pac. We're going to get into a lot of DX. You're going to see DX through your first, I believe, 3 matches here. They each have a singles match. And this is kind of a way of trying to establish all these guys as singles competitors. X-Pac is your European champ, and Billy Gunn's going for the Intercontinental title, while Road Dogg's going into the Hardcore Championship. Now, they eventually do a fatal flaw, in my opinion. I think WWE had set itself up quite nicely with Road Dogg being able to establish the Hardcore division and Billy Gunn being able to kind of get himself going for as an integral part of that Intercontinental Championship division, so to speak. Problem is that he didn't, right before WrestleMania 13, they flipped everything. They moved Road Dogg over to, the Intercontinental Championship division, and they moved Billy Gunn into the Hardcore Championship like 2 weeks prior to WrestleMania, and I don't think either man ever fully recovered. in terms of being a single star. So eventually they become back to being a tag team, and then kind of floundered from there. But I thought that I really think the Outlaws, you know, Road Dogg in particular, at this point, Road Dogg is probably looking at like Austin 1 as your top baby faces. Probably looking at Austin 1, Mankind 2, Road Dogg 3, which sounds crazy when you think, hey, isn't Triple H the leader of DX? True, but Road Dogg had really gotten over with his whole spiel. His mic skills had really gotten him to that next level. One of the things, when Mankind wins the championship, you know, Mankind wins the championship because Stone Cold comes out. We'll talk about it a little more later on as we prepare for Mankind's match. But at the end there, they give the mic right over to Road Dogg so that Road Dogg can get Mankind over to that next level. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. If you go back and watch that, Mankind wins the title. Road Dogg introduces him as the world champion. The following week on Raw, before Mankind comes out, Road Dogg comes out to introduce him as the new world champion. So Road Dogg was right there towards the top of that of the WWE roster, and had really kind of developed his niche both in the hardcore wrestling and with his mic skills that maybe I'm not sure too many other folks had fully done. Road Dogg is pretty underrated in terms of getting himself over to that next level, primarily on mic skills, if not entirely on mic skills. His wrestling, I mean, was okay, but for the most part, I mean, what are his signature moves? He does the shiggy knee drop, and then he, you know, does the pump handle slam when he pretends to kind of hump the folks there on the back, and that's basically kind of where they're at. So now your boss man has Road Dogg in a bear hug, and Road Dogg has him release the hold by biting the top of his forehead. Big knee to the midsection, flips Road Dogg over. One of the things to remember about this, and believe it or not, we're coming up now on the 20th anniversary of Beyond the Mat. Beyond the Mat at this point is really getting things over to that next level in terms of them becoming established as an entity in terms of a documentary that was following WWE around. So we'll get into talking about Beyond the Mat a little bit later on. But remember that the WWE at the time has Beyond the Mat there and has Beyond the Mat filming while all of this show is going on. Beyond the Mat is at this show. The folks who made the movie are filming everything backstage at the Royal Rumble 1999. So I'm going to read a little bit here from the Observer, and I'll continue to do this. Wrestling Observer, can't put it over enough. Wrestling Observer newsletter, f4wonline.com. You could sign up. It's the best bang for your buck out there. You're getting tons of audio, tons of stuff to read. Really, really good stuff. So let's get into kind of what Dave had to let's see what Dave Meltzer had to say, particularly about this match here. All right. So said basically that this particular match, one of the things I thought was really interesting about it was that, oh, and thank you for the folks who are leaving mics on there. That's very cool. But basically he had said non-title match under hardcore rules, but Stips were eliminated later on in the week. Solid opener with good heat early, but the reactions died down as the match progressed. In recent weeks, when they've been split up, it's become pretty clear that Jesse James has a lot of charisma on his own, and that Billy Gunn is one incredibly fortunate performer of the past year. So one of the things that's interesting about that statement, and I can't agree with Dave more, Dave did a good job in Road Dogg had really become the breakout star, and I think a lot of people thought Billy Gunn was going to be that breakout star and was going to be somebody to kind of be somebody to look at and be somebody to, you know, be the next big thing for WWE. And they do try later on when Billy Gunn goes on to win the 1999 King of the Ring. But it becomes clear that really Road Dogg was the breakout star. Unfortunately, they didn't make this a hardcore match. Had they made this a hardcore match, it probably would have been a lot more memorable. But it's the match I completely forgot about when I was looking at this show in terms of the build. because it was the type of deal where they didn't build up much for this show in terms of the matches on the show. You had a huge build for Rock Mankind. You had an unbelievable build for the Royal Rumble, and everything about that match is about furthering the rivalry between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon. That said, it's one of these things where a lot of folks do the rest of the show wasn't really promoted heavily at all. A lot of the shows were promoted. I mean, I think Sable and Luna had a little bit of promotion for their match, but you didn't hear anything for this match. You didn't hear anything for the Billy Gunn Ken Shamrock match, and didn't really hear much for the Gangrel X-Pac match. It was just kind of like, all right, let's fill up the card by getting all these fan favorites and hot new characters on the show, but we'll be able to kind of move forward from there and see kind of where we can go. And this really is right when a lot of those big characters are really coming into their own. Val Venus, D'Lo Brown, a lot of those mid-carders you remember. We're going to see all of them a little later on. There you see the juke and jive pound, and then big ass on the top of Boss Man while he's down in the second rope. Road Dogg a little juke and jive. Flying forearm rather. Goes off the ropes. The shiggy as we showed before. The knee drop to the face. Goes for the covered. 1, 2, and no. Referee Mike Chioda, your ref for this match. Referee Mike Chioda is still doing his thing to this day. Big sidewalk slam should be the end of it. Boss Man wins it. A meh match. How many stars did Dave give that one? That one wasn't a great match. Let's see. 2. It was okay. Nothing great. And it was kind of what it was. But next up, we got Ken Shamrock coming up here against the badass Billy Gunn for the Intercontinental Championship. So we'll be able to go through that. But I had mentioned before about Beyond the Mat. This was a documentary that was being filmed at the time, and I have some info on that documentary that I had pulled up a little bit, and I'll go ahead and I'll pull that back up. This is 1999, so this was directed by Barry Blaustein. He's the director. It produced and directed the movie, and it was released on October 22nd, 1999. But one of the things that they really focused on was this particular show. In particular, if you have never seen Beyond the Mat really follows around 4 stories, so to speak. Number 1, you have Ken Shamrock. You have Terry Funk, as they're showing some footage here, by the way, of Billy Gunn getting the ankle lock on Raw right before the show. So I guess actually Billy Gunn and Ken Shamrock did have some hype, but Ken Shamrock was really feuding with Val Venus because Val Venus was kind of macking it to Shamrock's sister. Billy Gunn was kind of the third man in that feud. So, again, just get DX on the show because people love DX and they'll each have a match and it is what it is. But Beyond that really focuses on 4 people. You have a story about Terry Funk as he prepares for retirement. You have a story on Darren Drozdov, who, as he prepares to get his start in the WWF, you have a focus on Jake Roberts, kind of as he's now dealing with life after the spotlight in WWE. And there's some real creepy stuff about that. And then you have the focus on Mankind, Mick Foley, in particular going into this match here with The Rock. And we're going to watch this match a little later on. If you've never seen this match, it is not for the weak at heart. There's a reason why this is that match there is the reason why it's there as a kind of a. That's why it's there as a TVMA. That's the reason for the TVMA rating. Is basically that folks were able to kind of do that and to relax. As I'll put this down here. Let's listen to Billy Gunn here.
And if you ain't down with WPMC, we got 2 words for you.
All right. Well, that was basically all Billy had to offer. If you're not down with WPMC, I don't know who the heck WPMC is. Let me see if I can figure that out. Let's Google that here while we're on the air. WPMC. All right. No idea. I don't think anyone has. I think that's one of the big questions there is wellness. WPMC. And this is from a user, Kyle Krettel, who was talking to the Attitude Era podcast back in 2015. The WPMC is the Wellness and Pain Management Collective, which is a medical marijuana dispensary. So all these years later, always wondering what, and you can tell I'm, a little straight edge, but always wondering what Billy Gunn was talking about. And all these years later, we find out that WPMC is the Wellness and Pain Management Clinic that is a medical marijuana dispensary. A little bit of a, you wonder how he was able to kind of give a shout out to that in the middle of the live pay-per-view. But 1989 was a very different time. And you remember this is also the time when like X-Pac's catchphrase was, your ass is grass and I'm going to smoke it. So big time different time period in WWE. Now, Billy Gunn here at this time, he's being referred to as the best pound-per-pound athlete in all of WWE. Whether or not that's true, I'm not sure. But I'd say this. Ken Shamrock, I always feel like is super underrated. The guy has good matches every single time out. And then back in the Attitude Era, the matches aren't that great. If you go back and watch the Attitude Era on Raw, it's so much more about storyline, about swerves, about, Million Miles an Hour. You can watch those shows, and I will say those shows do hold up today, but you probably can't find a memorable match on any of the shows. You go back and you watch those shows, they're all great if you love storyline. But if you're a fan, let's say, of that show we watched the other day, Wrestle Kingdom 13, where every match was Million Miles an Hour and every match was great, you're not going to find that level of quality back in 1999, at least not from a WWE perspective. It just wasn't what the product was aimed at. It was aimed at everything moving so fast. So you'd have, on television rather, you'd have 2 to 3 minute matches, and it would all be storyline throughout the rest of the show. You're not seeing too much storyline here on the pay-per-views, which is actually different. So you're instead getting longer matches on the show. Yeah, but that said, Boss Man and Road Dogg went, 12 minutes? This match here, I think, goes about 15. And I don't think there's anything on this show that really goes for a long period of time, unless you're talking about the title match and obviously the Royal Rumble match. But it'll be interesting to see and go back and watch that Rumble and see some of the characters that had been around then and were able to. As my feed here is lagging through. All right, I'm getting the thing back up now. Just so you guys know, if you're following along at home, I'm at 29 minutes in. Shamrock is lifting Billy Gunn back into the ring. They're on the outside there. And yeah, but I thought Shamrock's really underrated. First off, everything he does looks like it's super stiff. So everything he does, he has legitimacy because he's already coming from that UFC background. On top of that, I feel like he gets over to that next level as being a complete badass because he has the submission style, is the brawling style, and he has that intensity that really gets him over. Billy Gunn just takes Shamrock off the top, smashes his face into the table on the outside. Billy Gunn telling referee Tim White to shut his mouth. Billy getting Shamrock back into the ring here. Moving a little slow. But you got to remember, again, most of these TV matches, they're used to go in about 2-3 minutes. Now they're expected to go 15. Not easy. Now on Raw, every match goes 15-20 minutes. Every match has title commercial break inserted in between the match. Billy Gunn taking Shamrock's head down to his knee. Billy Gunn kind of stalking Shamrock, egging him to get on. Shamrock with a low leg twirl kick to the back of Billy Gunn's leg, taking Gunn down. Now Shamrock with stomps to the midsection of Billy Gunn, and now starting to get over towards his ankle to apply the ankle lock to Billy Gunn. Instead, continues to work on his quadricep. So he's definitely softening Billy Gunn up for the ankle lock submission hold. Now Shamrock again drops the knee down on that quadricep. Moving. Billy goes through. And we'll read the Observer here to see what Dave Meltzer had to say about this match. Shamrock controlled most of the match and worked a very physical style. Gunn must have done something because he got killed in every angle, got killed most of the match, and still did not, 20 years, spoiler alert, and still did the clean job at the end of the night. So Gunn also didn't do much of anything during the match, as it appeared Ken Shamrock was carrying things, and the crowd wasn't caring about the match. Kind of made the Intercontinental title look like a preliminary belt with a lack of crowd interest. Biggest bump saw Shamrock take a facebuster off the apron onto a table, which we just saw. Referee Tim White took a clumsy ref bump off a poorly set up Shamrock clothesline, which is coming up here in a bit. And that's basically it. Dave was a little upset that Shamrock wasn't really selling his injured ankle that the announcers were talking about during the match, but which was never actually sold during the match. And Shamrock put him in the ankle lock for the tap out. However, just to refresh your memory, Billy Gunn has still never submitted in his entire career. Not sure what Dave's referring to there, but yeah, not too sure. Shamrock now threatening referee Tim White.
This is a vicious front face lock from Ken Shamrock.
Shamrock now working over Billy in that front face headlock. And my thing is having some, my feed this morning is having a few issues. Let me just go ahead now and try to get the feed going here. I apologize for this, guys. Having some technical difficulty. All right, back there now. We're 34 minutes into the show itself. Gunn going for the pin here. No, doesn't get the belt. And really, Billy Gunn, Ken Shamrock, and Val Venus would feud over this belt from this point forward all the way to WrestleMania. As I said, though, inexplicably, they switched Billy Gunn. Oh, okay. So I guess when the feed was down there, Val came in, hit Shamrock with a big DDT. As I said earlier, Val Venus at this point is kind of running through the ranks of everybody who has somebody in their life who they're kind of close to. So he had already finished his feud with Goldust and kind of, doing his movies, adult movies with Marlena. However, he wasn't doing anything. Now he's kind of moved on to Ken Shamrock's sister, Ryan Shamrock, who, for those who don't know, was actually the young lady who Ken Shamrock was seeing at the time. So her role was his sister, but in all actuality was somebody that Ken Shamrock was seeing. So we're going to go into the top here. Oh, and Shamrock out of the way. So now Billy Gunn lands on the ankle and now is completely down and out. We know what's coming up next. Shamrock pounces on it, throws in the ankle lock, which everybody gets up for. He puts that ankle lock on. The crowd is up. Billy Gunn taps like a madman super quick. That spells the end for Billy Gunn and for Shamrock. Billy and Ken Shamrock retains the Intercontinental Championship. If you remember back at the time, too, a lot of times, it's like we're a couple weeks away from the Rumble, and there's already a couple of matches that are announced for it. I know we obviously, one of the big things is Braun Strowman going up for the title against Brock Lesnar. That is something that is new. That wasn't necessarily something where up and down the card you had a full card for the Rumble, specifically in the earlier Rumbles. Next week, ironically enough, the show that we're going to cover is Royal Rumble 2000. We're going to fast forward things 1 year and go back and watch that show, which is one of my favorite shows of all time and has tons of matches to really kind of sink your teeth into. Excuse me. On top of everything else. I'll let you guys listen in.
Oh, yeah, he's yours. He's yours. You are. All the training's been done. All the training. You are pumped up. You are the man. He's mine. That's right. Vinnie Mac is the man. Austin. Right over the top rope. Right over. You are ready. You are ready. So Mr. McMahon,
And they're showing now as they're taking Billy Gunn to the back. So a lot of that stuff you're hearing there with Shane McMahon and Vince McMahon was one of the really cool vignettes they were doing at the time. It's announced way early in the build-up for this Royal Rumble that Stone Cold Steve Austin was being made by Vince McMahon to go into number 1. Then they did a deal where Vince McMahon was drawing his number for the Rumble and said something to the extent of, man, I really wish I could be number 2 so that I could beat up Austin for the entire match, or some offhanded comment like that. Obviously, when he does the drawing, he ends up getting number 30 as we watch Gangrel come out. Unfortunately, not through the Ring of Fire, which is a shame. I don't know why that didn't happen. It's a bummer. Anyway, love this music. Love this character, though. Look at Gangrel, man. What a badass. That whole little... Listen to this theme here. Let's rock out to the Gangrel theme. You guys hear that? That's some good stuff. So, Gangrel, the wrestling vampire, for those who don't remember, this is pre-brewed Gangrel. He's, you know, yeah. So, that's basically that. But yeah, so they did that, and then at the time, Shawn Michaels had been brought back as the commissioner overseeing everything in WWE. And he had full reign. Vince McMahon couldn't interfere with any of the decision-making that he had. So he basically was in a situation where he had the ability to do anything and have power over anyone, provided that he didn't interfere with Stone Cold. Vince McMahon wanted full reign over Steve Austin, right? That was his big thing. When it comes down to Shawn Michaels, he eventually comes in. Everyone's all excited to see him. He turns. He goes with the corporation. Then in the last Raw of 1998, he actually turns on the corporation, ends up giving a Sweet Chin Music, I want to say, or he gets laid out or something, ends up joining DX and helping them. But because he had turned his back on DX, DX actually leaves Shawn to get laid out on that same episode of Raw where Mick Foley wins the title on January 4th. Shawn gets laid out by the corporation because DX leads him to the back and basically is like, screw you, because you've turned your back on us. It is what it is. And there you go. So you'll notice this is the European Championship. Title's been around now a little over a year. And even though British Bulldog had really kind of gotten the European Championship off the ground, I think that the European Championship is probably most synonymous with 3 guys. Number 1 would be British Bulldog. Number 2 would be D'Lo Brown. And then number 3 here would be X-Pac. I think X-Pac did a lot to really get that European Championship over to the next level after defeating D'Lo for that belt, and would end up keeping the European Championship for a while and have a sustained reign with it, to the point that his Elite figure even comes with the European Championship. If you guys are fans of Mattel. So in any event, Shawn eventually makes the call that rather than Vince McMahon coming in the ring at number 30, since he has free reign and power over every superstar who's not Stone Cold, he's actually going to give Vince his wish due to the offhanded comment Vince made and make him number 2 in the Royal Rumble match. So that is how we've got to where we're at today. And this led to some of the most fun vignettes WWE's ever done. The training vignettes, training Vince McMahon for the Royal Rumble, having Shane McMahon kind of be his trainer, take him out into the back, have him running around, helping him try to catch that chicken out in the snow, showing him preparing for the ring where he's destroying a luchador who ends up being revealed to be Tom Pritchard in the ring, and really showing Vince McMahon going through all this training. Really fun stuff. If you've never gone back, I'd say from January 4th to the Rumble, maybe even the show after the Rumble, the Raw after the Rumble, every piece of business that WWE does is so much fun. You know, it might even be all the way till WrestleMania 15 for all I know. I'm still going through some of it, but everything I've watched, and I've gone back and I've watched everything from that January 4th, 1999. It's a great starting point for you until the Raw after this show, and everything was great. I've had a lot of fun with it. I will go ahead. We'll keep updating you guys here. This was the best match, rating-wise, of the evening that Dave gave everything on the show, obviously except for the title match and the Royal Rumble. Well, actually, this even got higher than the Rumble. A lot of people don't like the Rumble match because it's all about the Austin McMahon feud. But let's hear what he had to say here about X-Pac and Gangrel. Really good fast-paced action, but again, lacking in crowd heat. So here's the thing. I think the crowd just wasn't, in my opinion, wasn't used to long matches. I think they were the crowd at the time was used to that, you know, million miles an hour, moving real quick, short match, storyline. So now when they're at a pay-per-view and they're expected to really get into matches, they're not that interested in the matches. You'll notice when each one of these guys comes out, they're really excited. They're pumped up. Each one of these guys is super over. You know, they're excited to do to chant along with the Road Dogg. They're excited to do the Suck It with Billy Gunn. X-Pac comes out, the entire crowd's kind of bopping up and down to his theme. But once the matches themselves start, then the crowd's not really that into it. And actually, if you go back and you watch, because I just went and I watched that January 4th, 99 episode of Raw, where basically Mankind he wins the championship. The crowd isn't even that into the Mankind and Rock match. Go back and watch that. The crowd absolutely erupts when Stone Cold comes out. Until that, though, the crowd's pretty much on their seat. Nobody's really up. No one's that excited for it. But there's not so much heat until that Austin music hits. Austin comes out, and it's like everyone just friggin' jumps and explodes there. But if you go back and watch that match, that Rock Mankind match for the title, which is really set up throughout the show. A lot of people don't remember that Mankind Rock was not promoted until pretty much the middle of the show. The only reason why it happens is because basically Vince McMahon's unhappy because Mankind on the last episode of Raw in 1998 gives Mr. Sacco as a nice spinning heel kick by X-Pac. Gives Mr. Sacco to Shane, ends up beating up on Shane. So Vince McMahon decides that Mankind is going to have a match with Triple H. And the winner of that match gets into the Rumble, and the loser does not. And he makes Shane McMahon the referee for this match. During the match, Shane hits Mick with a fast count and counts fast for Triple H, his future brother-in-law, though he didn't know it yet in early 1999. Triple H gets into the Royal Rumble match. They screw Mankind over. Mankind is super pissed after this. Oh, wow. So crossbody there by X-Pac. The Gangrel caught him and rolled over. Referee Teddy Long, holla holla playa, goes and drops the 1, 2, and 3 and counts the 3. But I guess X-Pac wasn't supposed to lose the belt here, so they just kind of kept going. Nice snap snap body slam there by Gangrel for another 2 count. But yeah, Mankind goes. He puts the so after the match, he goes ahead and he puts Shane in like almost like a Kimura type lock and yells at Vince McMahon that he wants a title match with The Rock. And earlier in the show, he asked for that title match. Vince McMahon said no, so he said now not only does he want the title match as he gets the X Factor and the win, does X-Pac. Not only does he want the title match, he wants the title match that night. So that's set up in the middle of that Raw show. And it really is an entire show-long storyline that starts with Mankind going and getting and asking for that shot at the Rumble. Vince McMahon's like, absolutely not. You don't deserve a shot. You know, you blow. You suck. Eventually, he's set up in a match for a Rumble qualifier with Triple H. They screw him. Shane does that. And then Vince McMahon has no choice but to award Mankind the title match because he has Shane in like a choke / Kimura type lock and refuses to let go until Vince gives him the title match. Actually, a really funny moment there. When they do when Vince gives Mankind the title match on that January 4th Raw, Vince and Rock is so pissed because he's like, are you serious? I'm not even ready to wrestle. He's like in his street clothes. And you notice Rock's in his street clothes even later on during the show. So they do a deal where Rock comes out and Rock is like, hey, kind of is what it is. Oh, let's listen in to DX and then I'll pick it back up.
Have you ever seen a fight in the Armstrong family? We are a family, but tonight I'm going to win $100,000 and get a shot at the WWF title. It goes like this. DX is as tight as anybody can get. But it's for the WWF title. It's for $100,000. And I'll tell you what, it's every man.
Look how young Hunter is.
And woman.
Okay, they said it all. Every man and woman for themselves in the Rumble match.
Yeah, well, where was Billy Gunn during that little interview? Of course, his ankle is he had his ankles kind of too.
Listen to this theme song for Shane McMahon. What theme song is that? I mean, Shane looking cool as the other side of the pillow here, coming out in his brown leather jacket, looking awesome. But this music is weird as all hell. Where is the money? Money, 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 money. Where is it? It's gone. So let's listen to Shane.
I would like to introduce to you the next WWE Women's Champion, the lovely Luna. Oh! So Shane is introducing Luna.
All right, so we're going with Luna and Sable, the late great Luna Vachon. All right. So, as I was saying, so they set up this match with Rock and Mankind at the end of the show of that January 4th episode of Raw. And what it eventually leads to is they've also teased that Stone Cold Steve Austin would not be on the show. So that basically was telling you he was coming. He comes out, and the pop that he gets in the middle of this Mankind Rock match is the most insane thing you've ever heard in your life. You know, we had said that the crowd wasn't super into Mankind and The Rock, and they really aren't. If you go back and you watch that, they're not. But when Austin comes out, holy shit, does this place explode. It's like the guy was so over at the time that, you know, it's a shame, but I don't think WWE, you know, Mankind's title reigns almost were a backdrop to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin came out, helped him win the title. He had a feud here with The Rock, but never fully got the most out of you know, the spotlight of being world champion. I don't think he really did, and that's a shame. I feel like WWE should have went with him for a while, and they really don't. And it's a shame because I know one of the things that the rumor and innuendo, I guess, quoting the Pritchard show, is that they wanted to set up a triple threat for the title at WrestleMania 15, where Mankind, Stone Cold, and The Rock went at it. And you can make a strong case that they should have. After Mankind wins the title, he even says something like, hey, you know, Vince McMahon says Stone Cold, there'll be no chance in hell. Well, I can tell you right now, as long as I'm in the WWF, there's always going to be one chance in hell. And I think it's really cool. So it's one of the things that, and he says that he'd love to face Austin at Mania. I feel like Mankind was so involved in the storylines to have him basically just in a backdrop match for the kind of the referee spot in that match. Instead, he really did deserve the spot in the actual main event. So, and you'll see Shane now is doing commentary. Shane's all over these shows. He was clearly a character that they were big on. Vince was clearly big on having him now a part of the show. And as a kid, he was my absolute favorite. I love Shane McMahon. I think I looked a little like Shane McMahon back in the day. So my friends and family would always, you know, compare me to him, and I loved that because I thought he was the coolest guy around. And Shane's always been a favorite of mine to this day. I'll be honest, WrestleMania in Dallas, I'm not sure I was going to go to that show if Shane McMahon is not brought back. I remember returning from a trip to Toronto and hearing that Shane McMahon had returned. My phone blew up because everyone knows what a Shane O'Mac fan I was. And he hadn't been seen on television since '09. So seeing him come back and be that big piece of where they're at really is, in 2016, got me so excited. I remember I told my wife, I was like, we're going to Dallas, and it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. got myself a bootlegged Shane O'Mac shirt on eBay that somebody was able to send me that I paid for, and then felt like an asshole 2 weeks later when they released one for Mania, which I don't know how I didn't realize they were going to do that. And it was a really nice kind of Shane O'Mac baseball-inspired jersey that said the money on it. Bummed that I still didn't get to pick that up. I should have. And I'm back to WrestleMania 32. I have, I believe, the WrestleMania shirt from 32, but I should have got that. That was really cool. And I think Shane made that whole show. I really do. I know that match isn't a match people technically go back and say, oh, that was a really fun match to go back and watch. For me, he really sold that entire show. Next to the match at hand here, you're seeing Luna and Sable in a strap match. Basically, the idea of a strap match, don't do too many more of these because they're a little Every person has to go run around and hit every one of the turnbuckles until all 4 turnbuckles are touched. When you hit all 4, you win the match. It's that simple. But as you can see, this concept is a little And Luna and Sable, they had done a thing on Heat. So again, as I had said earlier, one of the things that's really cool about this period of time is WWE has all of these Sunday Night Heat episodes from the first episode up until about August of 1999. So you can go back and watch the Sunday Night Heat before all those shows. They don't have all of those episodes up, but they at least have that first year. So I went back and I watched the Heat before this show, and it's such a good hype piece for this particular show. They had Luna and Sable do an angle where Luna attacked Sable before the show and kind of moved forward from there. Luna, still in the oddities, I believe, though she might have been actually filtering out of the oddities at this point. But she's really big on helping Sable kind of move forward and do well in the ring. She was obviously trained a lot longer than Sable. Sable was kind of in the ring just based on her explosion of popularity, whereas Luna is she's a veteran. You know, she's good in the ring. She knows what she's doing. So, you know, it kind of is cool to kind of that she was there. Let me actually go over, though, and see. I just want to give you guys kind of the timeline there. Shame that Luna's passed away. And, you know, unfortunately, we're going to see a lot of these guys that we're watching here that have passed away, which is tough. Now Shane's running in there to kind of help Luna out and distract the referee. But one of the things that's interesting here, and I believe you're going to see it, is Tori. And there she is. Tori had debuted in WWE as an obsessed Sable fan. This would eventually lead to, and Sable ends up winning the match due to help from Tori. Ended up doing a deal where Tori had showed up so she did a deal where she basically was a huge fan of Sable. Now, Sable's still a babyface. Eventually, Sable will turn into a major heel and lead to a match between her and Tori at WrestleMania 15. Problem is, they didn't really do too much more with this. They could have definitely gotten a lot creepier with it. They didn't, but they did make up for it 7 years later when they redid the storyline much better with Mickie James and with Trish Stratus. Look at this outfit Luna's wearing, though. Luna's in a G-string. That couldn't have been fun to wrestle in. I mean, geesh. But Sable was, I mean, red hot, too. Sable was right there. I'd say, you know, I talked about the baby faces in WWE before, it being kind of Austin, Mankind, DX. I'd say it was probably Austin, Sable, Mankind, DX. Really, really good stuff. You'll also notice that big, kind of the big, kind of a deal where the WWE would do a situation where they, oh, and thank you so much to Omar Tube, giving us a little sub while we're on the air here. What's up, Omar? Thanks so much for that. And appreciate that. So yeah, Sable was red hot. Wasn't really that great in the ring, but they didn't give her too. That match was 5 minutes long, and that was basically it. Look how young Michael Cole is here, though. JR eventually would return at the main event of WrestleMania 15. But here we go. Mankind versus The Rock. I Quit match. I will let you guys listen in on the hype package for this match.
Mankind, the least your unworthy ass can do is give The Rock what is rightfully his, and that's a shot at his title, Royal Rumble 1999. You're simply not championship material. It'll be a no disqualification match as well. I'm going to have to take a pass on that one, Rock. Don't count out as well. No, thank you, Rock. The Rock guarantees that not one member of Team Corporate will be around the ringside. You get no title shot. Obviously, The Rock quits and trying to get your money out. I accept. You and I at the Royal Rumble in an I Quit match. How does it feel, Rock? How does it feel to be in a match that you can't win and I can't lose? What you're failing to realize is that you are going one-on-one with the great one. I've been through every kind of match and I've never quit. I've been blown up. I've been wrapped in barbed wire. I've been thrown on tacks and beds of nails. Pain is my calling in life. It's my middle name. How is The Rock going to make Mankind say I quit? A corporate elbow here and a corporate elbow there. The Rock plans on sprinkling a rock bottom here and a rock bottom there. The Rock's going to take Mankind out to the English announce table. And The Rock's going to go down the line. Spanish announce table, French announce table, Ho Chi Minh Chow, Chinese announce table.
I love it.
All the languages down the Rock's Rumble. I will never say I quit. Then The Rock is going to drag Mankind down Know Your Role Boulevard. Hang that right there on Jabroni Drive. And there it is. The SmackDown Hotel. Take his candy ass from room to damn room until it's checkout time. I will not say them here nor there. I will not say them anywhere. I will not say those words you quit. I will not say I quit. We don't care about self-interest. It doesn't bother me. There's a human being in there that is unbelievably indestructible.
This is a hell of a video package.
The Rock's ass. The Rock plans on proving to you and the millions and millions of The Rock's fans. I will never say I quit. When it's all said and done, Mankind, you will realize that even though you have one ear, The Rock has two, which means you son of a... The Rock is going to hear you scream, I quit. There will be no disqualification, no count out, no corporate members at ringside, no stopping the match for excessive blood loss. You see, what I'm going to do very simply is beat the living hell out of you until you cannot take it anymore. And you look up at me with that ridiculous eyebrow and you say the two magic words, Rock, I quit. Well, here we go, Rock.
Wow. Let's listen to old Doot, my main man, Doc Hendricks, with The Rock.
What no one has ever done and make Mankind utter the words, I quit. First and foremost, Doc, know your role is shut your mouth. I'll tell you what, Mankind, there's something about this whole situation that really befuddles The Rock. Because you see, The Rock isn't just some Rudy-Poo candy ass on the corner of Know Your Role Boulevard and Jabroni Drive that you're just going to have your way with The Rock. Well, because tonight, in front of the thousands of Rock's fans here tonight, while chanting his name, and the millions and millions of The Rock's fans watching live, The Rock guarantees to prove to you that The Rock is the great one, and The Rock is the most electrifying man in sports entertainment today. And after you utter the words, I quit, The Rock will go down as being the best damn WWF champ there ever was. If you smell what The Rock is cooking.
So, hot damn. First off, video package was badass. Second of all, Rock is unreal. He's really coming to his own with all these catchphrases. These are some of the most famous ones that he's had. What did we hear there? We heard "Know Your Role, Shut Your Mouth." We heard "Corner of Jabroni Drive," "Know Your Role Boulevard," and "Jabroni Drive," the SmackDown Hotel. Millions and millions of The Rock's fans. Thousands of The Rock's fans watching around the world. My personal favorite, though, and I remember hearing it for the first time on this and then kind of really liking it, was take you down to the English announce table, the Spanish announce table, Ho Chi Minh Hua, the Chinese announce table. The guy was awesome. And you gotta, you know, impossible to dislike this guy. Impossible to not cheer for him and not really get into his catchphrases. Everyone wants to say those things with him. So this was really, in my opinion, the epitome of the super cool heel. You'll notice as Rock comes down, he is rocking the tracksuit. Rock, at the time, if anyone doesn't know why he had this on, was dealing with, he was recovering from some sort of cosmetic surgery that he had to, you know, reduce the chest area. So he had kind of, you know, had that surgery done, and then for a while had to wear that while he was recovering. So that's why he had that shirt on, which they did just put out an Elite, not just a couple years ago, Elite 47.5, if you want to go and check that out, with Rock rocking that shirt. And it's you know, he had that for a couple of months at least. This is also the beginning of the Mankind just getting his new theme song. Got this theme song right after he won the title. It's a little different from the Mankind theme song, you know, almost exactly the same, except there's a lot more pronounced car crashing sounds and a longer car crash as they go through. Mankind, 3-time champion. And I don't think any of his reigns lasted more than a month. Kind of a shame. But this is the third of 4 straight world title matches that Rock and Mankind have had on pay-per-view. And I'm not sure if there's ever been any other 2 guys, I could be wrong, that had 4 title matches on 4 straight months of pay-per-view like Rock and Mankind had. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but sounds about right. And you can kind of tell Mick Foley, Mankind, this is a situation where Mankind had kind of done a deal. And there you go. So now Mankind's fighting Rock here. Probably one of the most famous probably one of the most famous non-Royal Rumble matches in Royal Rumble history on the show. And this is a good match. Really good match. Really strong match. Unfortunately, it gets out of hand, and we'll get to that in a sec. Earlier in the show, by the way, on Sunday Night Heat, and I didn't go through this. Let me go quickly through the Sunday Night Heat matches that were on the show for you guys. I remember it being something with the Job Squad. So we'll go through that real quick. So dark matches and Heat matches on this show. So early on in the show, the first match on the show was Christian defeating Jeff Hardy in a dark match. I believe this is before they both officially debuted for the company. Then on Heat, you had the Job Squad, Bob, Holly, and Scorpio defeating Too Much, who were basically, at this point, relegated to Heat most of the time. Brian Christopher and Scott Taylor. And then you had a tune-up match between Mankind defeating the returning Mabel by DQ, which is basically just something that they were kind of building up. And there, Mankind is really leveling Rock with the microphone. And I remember going into this match and being very, you know, pretty much dead convinced that one of these deals with that Mankind was going to win this match. You can never have imagined Mankind ever saying "I quit," ever tapping out. They even did a deal where Rock gets a, you know, where Ken Shamrock had done his submission hold, the ankle lock submission hold on Mankind, and Mankind refused to quit. And they even showed a clip during that really good video package we saw earlier, where Mankind didn't want to quit and wanted to hold on so badly that he gives himself the mandible claw so that he passes out. So Shamrock wins by him passing out. But he didn't submit to the ankle lock. Instead, he forced himself to submit. And that was kind of something that was cool about Mankind. So going into this match, I thought, for sure, Mankind's winning this match and keeping the title. Rock's going to eventually quit. But Rock in this match really shows his toughness. Well, he doesn't take the bumps and the insanity that and the punishment that Mankind takes. He's hanging in there. He's doing his thing. One of my favorites is Rock on commentary. I'll bail out here for you guys for a sec so you guys could hear Rock do commentary. Mankind attacks Rock on the table there. And if you didn't hear Rock, he asks King, he says to King, you know, you're not going to address the Great One, you're not going to talk to The Rock. Finally, Jerry Lawler says, oh, yeah, it's great to see you, Rock, and starts talking to him. And immediately after, Rock tells him to shut his mouth, calls him a piece of trash, gives him one of the old Rock backhand type deals as Mankind levels Rock in the back with the steel chair. And we're going to get into the steel chair situation later on. Now, one of the things, again, to remember here is that Beyond the Mat is focusing a lot on this match. And even though this match is a good match, it is a little distracting to constantly hear, you know, do you quit? Do you quit? And the mic's in the person's face. That's a little much. But Beyond the Mat is filming this at the time. So they're filming this, and not only are they filming it, but remember, for whatever reason, Mick Foley decides this was going to be the match that he'd have his family sit front row for. So a very young Dewey Foley and a very young, extremely young Noelle Foley are sitting in the front row with Colette, his wife. This is before Mick's other two children were born. But they're sitting there, and they're just horrified. And they have to just watch this match unfold as they go through it. So even though you're seeing now Mick's bringing out Mr. Sacco, who does look extra dirty, if I'm being honest, as he puts it into The Rock's mouth here, as the punishment unfolds, Mick's kids are in the front frickin' row. And Beyond the Mat really shows and kind of details everything about this match. And not only do they do that, but then they show Mick afterwards, after he's taken all this punishment. And if you have never seen Beyond the Mat, go out of your way to watch it. It's top-notch. It's fantastic. I'd go so far as to say no wrestling documentary has ever topped Beyond the Mat. And we talked about the stories they did earlier. Those were like the four big ones, but they also did some stuff about wrestlers who were trying to get their spot in WWE, their dark matches in WWE. And that's always fun to watch. But the Foley stuff is just the highlight of it for me. They show him kind of walking in the back with his family, and he's just a bloody mess, just bleeding profusely out of his head from the immense chair shots that we're going to watch together that are stiff as all hell. And Rock just gets ridiculously carried away. And they show that. And then they show him laid out in a stretcher. And they show, I think it's Draws come over and basically say, you know, Mankind, you're the man, or something like that. And they show him then going back with his family and watching the match again from the perspective of his kids sitting in the front row and quincing and losing their mind. And the kid, Noelle, is crying hysterically as Colette's trying to figure out what to do. So Mick charges at Rock. Rock takes him over the barricade onto the arena floor, and in the process is carried over with him. Now Rock's kicking him. And Rock's doing the trademark Rock kicks. So he's shaking the leg each time before he goes ahead and delivers one of those kicks. But it's crazy to see. And Mick actually says that watching this match and the punishment he took, and then seeing how his family, as we watch Rock, put the bell on Mick's head and then ring the bell so that he could kind of get the hearing, the ringing in Foley's ears. But they show Mick Foley credits this match and going back and during Beyond the Mat and watching some of that footage with his family of having him really change up his style and turning more into that comedy character during the last year of his career. Rock and Mankind now going up to the Spanish announce table. Yes, the Spanish announce table's been breaking. Oh my gosh! So he goes to the Spanish announce table, hit the rock bottom, but the table's flimsy as shit. So as they're both standing on the top of that table, the table just gives way under the weight of both these guys, and they come crashing down in a heap. Up yours, Mankind says to Rock, as Rock continues to level Mankind with these things. So he doesn't even get a chance to do it because both of them coming down. Rock taking a little swig of the water and spitting in Mick Foley's face as they continue to fight. Mick still has Sacco on, by the way. It's probably really hard for Mick to, I assume, do anything with the sock on his hand, but he's still doing it. Taking Rock around the ring into the exposed turnbuckle. And now they're going to the back area. Mick running after Rock. Big elbow over to the back of his head. This was one of the things, too, where that I think this is the first time they did this, so it really felt as fans are just tossing their signs over there, trying to get their signs on television. They literally are throwing the signs onto the Rock. Looks like somebody back there is just walking over the signs. They're going over to the sound system area. Let me grab some water here. Seeing Rock take some water made me excited to do the same. So yeah, they're going up into the area with the crowd. Very cool. Thanks so much, all of you, all of these new folks who are tuning in here, and also the folks who have subscribed. I really do appreciate it. Definitely helps things going. So Mick Foley and The Rock, they're pounding on each other over by the Royal Rumble sign by the entranceway. You can kind of see how the entrance is way smaller in scale for some of the other entrances that you've seen, but I like it. It's kind of nice. It's snug, and it's really cool. So Mick Foley keeps saying no. Rock keeps asking him if he quits. One of the main things WWE at the time was also promoting was that they were going to have a commercial in the Super Bowl, and that's obviously the big commercial that they've been promoting for many years. The commercial everyone remembers, the Super Bowl commercial from 1999. We will revisit that, both the Super Bowl commercial as well as the halftime heat, that match between Mankind and The Rock. And we'll get into all that here in a sec. This is still, as Rock's taking a lot of punishment here, Mick is really stiff with that ladder. One of the things that's really interesting, though, is this is the week before the Super Bowl. So, again, Royal Rumble is still big elbow drop onto the ladder. Rock moves. Mick goes directly onto the ladder. And that's just the type of punishment he would do to himself that really just, ouch. It's almost like a transitional spot in this match. And at the same time, that has to fucking hurt. I will say they are really doing a good job in building the anticipation of Mankind to quit. He's hitting them with everything in sight. And now Rock is setting up the ladder to go over to that part of the arena where they're going to go and climb up. And Rock's going to go now and climb the ladder up. Look how high that ladder is. in relation to part of the arena. Crowd's losing their mind. They don't even really have this really too well lit for this spot here. And this is a spot that I remember thinking was one of the coolest spots they've done really ever. At the time, one of the coolest things WWE's ever done. It's often forgot about because of the brutality towards the end of this match. They're both walking up there. They climb the ladder. Now they're walking literally by the barricade. And, I mean, what's to stop a fan from shoving The Rock off there? I mean, Rock's strong as hell. I'm sure he'd hold on, but scary stuff, I'm sure. And the two of them, they're just walking along on the top of this little area on this apron. And I remember thinking this was the first big move that Rock's ever done. First ever big bump that Rock's ever taken. That was just like, oh, shit, Rock is legit. Rock is a main eventer. And he's not afraid to get a little beat up himself. Foley did this later on, 6 years later, or 5 years later, with Randy Orton when they had their match at Backlash 2004. I feel like Mick really showed that Randy had more to offer. Mick Foley now getting up. Rock about to charge him. Oh, Rock doesn't even take a bump. I thought both of them went through the... All right. Revisionist history by me. I thought Rock and Mick both went down into the lights. But one of the coolest things about this, Mick goes off, hits the soundboards. The soundboard sparks. So in doing so, all of the lights and electricity in that area are out and remain out, if I'm not mistaken. And I could be, because I also thought Rock fell off there. Shane McMahon's out there checking out Mankind. That's also something that's kind of cool. You have Shane McMahon is fully ingrained in a heel here, but he's coming out to make sure Mick's okay. So now it's like, oh shit, he's breaking character because that was not supposed to happen. Look, even Shane's trying to get Rock to calm down and see kind of what's going on. Rock looks concerned. They really did a good job in building this up. Yeah, Shane wants to call it off. The Rock is still trying to get... Rock is refusing to allow Shane to call off the match because he's saying, I don't care. I'm going to make sure he screams, I quit. Seems to be some sort of fireworks going on outside, and it's... I mean, what time is it now here? It's way too early. It's 11:37. People are throwing out fireworks out by my house. Why are people doing that in the middle of the winter? Look how cool that spot is, though. I mean, the way they pulled that off had to be somewhat dangerous to have all these sparks flying off, like right above, right after where Mankind hits. Mick doesn't get out of the way there. You feel like that could be a really bad situation. But look how dark it is back there. All the electricity in the back is out. The sign for the Rumble is out. And now you're getting... people, fans are still tossing their signs all over the place, trying to get their signs on the television. And Rock is really just... Mick's taking all the punishment in this. I don't know what I thought Rock showed me in this match. He hasn't taken a damn thing. Not any sort of bumps in this match. But, we'll say this. When they showed the match of Mick Foley going back and rewatching his old match and revisiting the arena where he won the title 20 years later, Rock retweeted it and tweeted about what a great moment that was. Here, I'll pull up the exact tweet of what Rock said. Because obviously these guys are going to have a lot of issues between the two of them coming up here before they eventually form the Rock and Sock connection. So he like retweeted it and said, let's see. I saw this just yesterday. Let's see. So cool to watch this. We had no idea we were going to make history this night, and after the course of professional wrestling in WWE forever, real Mick Foley is the kindest, sweetest, smartest, toughest, and craziest man I've ever known. All love and respect to you, my friend. Hashtag GOAT. Really cool of Rock to do that. All these years later, Rock is like obviously Teflon. I mean, the guy's like the biggest star in the world, and he's still able to go back and, you know, show who he is and also be able to put Mick Foley over. So now Mick Foley is in handcuffs. We're going to count out these chair shots as they happen. They are brutal to watch. I think Mick had said something like it was supposed to be 4 or 5 chair shots, and Rock just got super carried away. And did he ever? Not only is he taking Mick's head and just smashing into the top turnbuckle here as Mick hits him with a low blow in desperation. But it's rough. I mean, this match gets completely rough. And, of course, when they're talking about changing history, of course, when Mick Foley wins the title, that was a taped Raw. So you had Tony Schiavone mentioning on WCW, because remember, WCW is still around at this time. You know, Mick Foley's going to win the title tonight on Raw. That'll be sure to put the butts in the seats. And then, like, as history would dictate, the number of people, there's a large number of people who went, oh, shit, they're putting the title on Mick Foley? Get out of this WCW crap, and changed over from WCW to WWE. And it was like the ratings switched right at that very moment between WWE and WCW. So always thought that was cool, and cool to kind of go from there. Big clothesline from The Rock. Knocks Mick Foley down. Foley's still in the handcuffs, and I can't imagine that is comfortable at all. And here goes Rock. Rock is now pissed. And he's showing desperation. That's the idea they're trying to establish with The Rock here. He's desperate, so he's like, screw this. I'm going to put this guy away. I'm going to just batter him with a chair until he quits. So Rock's doing the corporate elbow, which is basically the people's elbow, except he doesn't throw the well, he did throw the elbow pad into the crowd. Rock goes off the goes for the elbow. Elbow drop on the chair, which is on Mick Foley's face. So that's chair shot number 1. Think about the fact that now nobody takes an unprotected chair shot to the head. No one should, at least. Really hope this. Now he's picking up the chair, and here we go. This really isn't going to age well, but it is what it is. It's part of the show. Stiff-ass chair shot number 2. Crap. Number 3. Mick is bleeding profusely. And I don't even think that that is something necessarily that is bladed or anything, because Mick can't do it. His hands are behind his back. 4. 5. Ouch. 6. Really, really awful. I mean, totally mauling the dude. That should have been it. Mick's even moving to the outside. He's having none of it. 7 on the chair shots. Eight chair shots. That, I mean, and they're stiff as all hell. 9. Remember, let's not forget about the fact that his kids and his wife are in the front row. Somebody threw a baseball cap at Foley. Really cool fan there for doing that. Right, and Mick is clearly trying to get him to stop hitting him too. It's 9 now. 10. Might have even been more than 10. I think I lost count of them. So this Rock is now finally starting to look like just a vicious ass heel, but it's far too much. So, a couple things on this. So that's Mick Foley saying I quit towards the end of the match. Rock wins the title. Brutal display there. One of the things that is interesting, Rock wins the belt, and in the process of winning the belt, does a good job in trying to look at the pool of blood by the guy's freaking face, dude. Rough. And this actually did get 2 figures, too. Really odd to bring this up now. But crazy stuff. Rock goes out there. So yeah, so Mick Foley actually did. Rock did get 2 figures out of this. One was the figure from 47.5 Elite, and then he also got the entrance great figure, where basically he ends up doing a situation where he has a basic figure, but he's in this outfit. Comes with a little display case that plays this particular music. There's Francois, who at the time was really big in virtually every backstage segment that they had kind of gone through. Every time anyone would be injured, Francois would be back there checking on them. He was like a chiropractor. But look how unhappy he is here. And Rock's now looking over at Francois, pushing him out of the way to kind of pose with the belt. Now, the story goes at the end of this match, one of the main reasons why is when they re-showed all the footage of Mick Foley walking with his family and Mick Foley being checked on by the people backstage. Basically, Mick goes back and reviews the tape, and you never see The Rock go check on Mick. You never go see if he's okay. You never go see kind of what's going on. Now, of course, Rock does a run-in. Not to make any excuses. He should have absolutely made sure he was okay. That should have been the number one thing on his mind, especially if the deal was he's supposed to hit him with 3 or 4 share shots, and he shot him with like 12. But the way the story goes is also that Rock was getting ready for the big match with, being a part of the main event. He's in the Rumble match. He does a run-in, right? So Rock does a situation where it's something where The Rock kind of goes ahead and Rock has to get ready for that, I guess. Another part of it is that who's to say Rock didn't necessarily maybe feel so bad he didn't even want to, maybe felt a little weird going over and seeing if he was okay. But yeah, brutal match. Doesn't hold up well at all today. Specifically, you don't see anyone take a chair shot like that. Thank heavens today. Gotta figure that has to have a ton of damage that has been lasting. And obviously, Mick Foley's had a couple of different issues going on. Some health issues, some surgeries. And you can't help but think how many of those were caused by things like the damage he took in this match. Chair shot after chair shot after chair shot. Just terrible stuff, man. Hard to even move on and get ready for the Royal Rumble. But it's one of these things that doesn't hold up well. Again, if you're interested in kind of seeing a lot of really good stuff from like behind the scenes, let's get into. I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and listen on this part of the show, and I will be right back in a sec. Grab myself some water, and then we'll settle in for the Rumble match.
No rematch. Stone Cold, screw you! You're fired! It was me, Dad, that hired Stone Cold back. It was me! This contract right here guarantees at least one title shot. How brilliant is Mr McMahon? I want to make Stone Cold's life miserable. What I got here is a legally binding contract which gives me a title shot at the Rock. How brilliant is Mr McMahon? At January's Royal Rumble, you will.
All right, settling back in here, guys. Thanks for giving me a minute to step away, grab some water. But I'm going to let you listen to the end of this video package, as I think it gives you a good idea of the perspective as to where we were at.
There is no chance in hell of you winning the Royal Rumble. Because Mr McMahon, Drew Steve Austin, number one. And on top of that, with a $100,000 bounty on my head, which means that individual who eliminates Austin will be $100,000 richer. Yes, you got to accept that match tonight. You make yourself number 30 in the Rumble. On up and get back. We'll get you on your ass. Like the Mr. Shawn Michaels, make you the second man in the Royal Rumble. There is no chance in hell. I want to make Stone Cold's life miserable. But there's 100,000 dead presidents. You will know that Austin 360 says I just went your ass. There is no chance in hell you'll ever again be the World Wrestling Federation champion. No chance in hell. Earlier tonight on Sunday Night Heat, Stone Cold Steve Austin was denied access to the building through the VIP entrance because he didn't have a limo.
So that was something that happened on Heat. Austin was turned away from that and from the arena. That was something they kind of built up, and they built up that if he didn't get in there, Vince McMahon needed him to get in there for to face Vince McMahon one-on-one and to deal with that. And Austin goes ahead and uses a monster truck to get into the VIP entrance so he can make it in on time. Gets down there and gets slapped by Vince McMahon as that last-second hype for the pay-per-view. All right, so one of the really interesting things that I wanted to kind of touch on here is just kind of going back to that Wrestling Observer newsletter about, hey, there's the WWF blimp, the 10-10-220 blimp. I remember actually being live for one show that had the blimp, SummerSlam 2002. All right, 1999 Royal Rumble. We're going to get ready for it right now, but let me just read you this last piece. Calls about the pay-per-view, calls about the Mick Foley Rock match. Let's see. So Meltzer says, this finish, and I'm not talking about the screwjob aspect of it, didn't remotely qualify as entertainment. Maybe caring that a guy who was formerly such a brilliant performer may wind up with no brain cells later in life qualifies you as someone who doesn't get it. There was a very interesting piece here. He said 90% of the phone calls that we received were negative toward the finish, and almost nobody was raving in awe of the punishment Foley took, and were more mad at him for his lack of common sense than empathizing with him for the pain that he was willing to suffer for the sake of entertainment and to make the match memorable. He could have accomplished the same thing with 3 chair shots. I do want to point out, not in defense of Foley, but that I've seen I've seen people before take every bit as many chair shots, every bit as hard and harder to the head. Although in those cases, while the shots may have been harder, they were more carefully delivered as to being all on top of the head where the skull is thickest, whereas Rock was swinging it like a baseball bat wherever it would have hit. And I'd bet for pennies to dollars on their financial payoff wasn't the same than Foley's was. It wasn't anything unprecedented, and there was a lot of money involved in the business nowadays. But hopefully we'll never see anything like that again. Amen. And thankfully, we probably didn't. Now, of course, for those who don't know, the finish there where Foley says, I quit, on Heat, he said something to Shane McMahon where he actually said, I quit, I quit, I quit, in the promo he did against Shane. And Shane said, thank you so much, Mick, for those words. Turns out he recorded that deal where Mick was saying, I quit, and then played it back in this match. And so it made it look like Mick was saying, I quit, but really it was just a recording. This was all revealed the next night, and the two were set up for a rematch, empty arena rematch, on Halftime Heat, something that took place during halftime of the Super Bowl. And the two of them did their thing and then had a good time with it. But it was something where they that was a memorable match as well. But that's always how WWE was this time. It'd be like you'd set up something up for a pay-per-view, and then boom, it would be done by the next time around. And by the next night, almost everything in this entire pay-per-view is just, look at Vince McMahon, though. Jacked to the absolute gills. Look at this guy. Holy shit stick. Over the age of 50, coming out oiled up. My word. Austin looks totally disgusted. So here they go. Austin, Vince, starting off the Rumble. They're the entire part of this Rumble is Austin and McMahon. I don't think there's a Rumble that is more revolved around two guys more than this particular Royal Rumble match. But I could be wrong on that. But not off the top of my head. One of the things that we'll kind of talk about here through the match, and one of the things Dave said was that WWE really at this point was trying to tone down their what they were trying to do. At the time, it was all about sex appeal. It was all about debauchery, if you will, and it was one of these things where coming into this show, WWE was doing types of angles where it was all set up. While you'd have some angles that were super hot between Austin and McMahon, on the undercard you'd have you'd have stuff with Mark Henry and Sammy, the transvestite, I guess, woman, drag queen who was met, as a woman, and the idea that she was giving oral sex to Mark Henry. They showed that on television right in front of Mark Henry's mom. They had something silly going on and something over the top, so much so during this period of time. And, at least at this show, they seem to at least turn it down. So here's Vince and Austin going at it. I remember thinking at the time, these guys were going to be 1 and 2, and there was either going to go one of two ways. One, they'd be there at the end. Two, Austin would dump Vince, and then you'd just see him kind of dump him real fast before number 3 came out as like, who are we kidding? But one of the other things that was fun was I talked about the DX and corporation and all of the different factions that were around at the time. They actually did a faction battle royal between DX and the Corporation, where the winner of that battle royal from Team Corporate as well as Team SmackDown, I mean Team Corporate and Team DX, the winner of that, the last person standing, would get, as Austin teases getting rid of Vince and then pulls back on it. And number 3 is about to come out, and it is Golga, I think. How did I remember it was Golga all these years later? I'll never know. But look at the crowd. They're into this song. Unfortunately, the song by the Insane Clown Posse is not on the network. Instead, it's some generic, really bad music. But Golga just kind of hanging out, knowing his place here, and letting Austin beat up on Vince. But, of course, one of the things, and we hadn't really discussed it yet, that is about this is not only is Vince McMahon number 2 and Austin number 1, but Vince also put a $100,000 bounty on on Austin's head. Anyone who could eliminate Austin would get $100,000. So that's why Golga, who was a fan favorite of part of the Oddities, ran in and tried to go after Austin. And now Austin and McMahon are heading to the back, and that's the end of them. Excuse me, bless me, for the remainder, really, of the match till the end of it. They're going to go to the back, and this is the middle of the Royal Rumble, right after number 3. So Golga's out. The late, great John Tenta, he's out. One of the other storylines that was really going on, though, was, again, the battle between the Corporation and DX. They've done a deal where the winner here, they did a corporate battle royal on the Raw the night, the one after Mick won the title. So I want to say January 11th, 99. You go back and check that out. And they end it with a corporate/DX battle royal. And the winner of that would get number 30 in the Royal Rumble. And ended up coming down to, I believe, Triple H and I want to say Test or Boss Man or Shamrock. And they both, nice little shot of the backstage area in the Arrowhead Pond as Vince and Austin are running around. No fans to be seen. I'm sure security's working overtime. You see the security kind of on that. And Vince sprints into the ladies' room, and boom, Corporation is there, ready to lay Austin out. Boss Man, Test. Boss Man, Test, and I guess Boss Man, Test, and I guess that's Shamrock. Here comes Draws. Draws number 4. He's all in his LOD gear. This is the period of time where he was taking over for Hawk because Hawk was still showing up hammered all the time. So Hawk might even be completely out of it at this point. Draws doing his thing. So yeah, there's Draws. But yeah, in the corporate battle royal, it came down to those guys. And then the buzzer ran off again, and out came Vince McMahon. He tossed both out. It looked like he was going to be number 30 in the Rumble. Buzzer went off again. Ended up being Chyna. She came out. Austin ran down, kicked Vince with a stunner and laid him out. Chyna came out, threw Vince out, and became the first woman entry into the Royal Rumble, and would go ahead and win the corporate Rumble and become number 30 in the Rumble. A very young Edge running into the ring with a beaded necklace as he tackles Draws and goes down. This will be a fun Rumble to watch. I don't remember much of this except for the stuff with Austin and McMahon. So yeah, so you've built up this idea that it's going to be Austin and McMahon throughout the whole Royal Rumble, and now they're both out of the ring. Austin's laid out, he's destroyed, and Vince is at the back too. So now you have to be, now you need to focus on these guys who are, for the most part, relegated to heat. These guys weren't even on the show for any of the shows that I've watched leading up to, any of the Raws at least. Talking about the idea that Vince is still in the match because he wasn't technically eliminated. He crawled under the ring, as did Austin to run after him. So the only guy technically eliminated is Golga. Also interesting to note, they have not announced how long the entries are between people. They usually say every 2 minutes, every 90 seconds, every 60 seconds. This Rumble they didn't. They just said at evenly timed intervals. Bruce Pritchard in the past has talked about Titan time. How sometimes if a match was going slow, the Rumble match was going slow, they'd speed it up and do an entry in one. Up. Here we go. You can tell by the sparklers. It's Gillberg, the parody of Goldberg. By far the most over guy out of the non-Austin McMahon guys to come out sometime at this point. Look at Gillberg. Oh, man. And the idea there behind Gillberg, of course, with him being a mockery of Goldberg. Goldberg was who's next, and Gillberg was who's first. Climbs onto the top rope, and goodbye. Gillberg is out. Edge eliminates Gillberg, and we're back to Edge draws. I'd assume there's going to be a title, a countdown, real countdown clock. Oh, no, instead they go back and they show Vince and the corporation walking over Austin. They've laid him out in the women's room, and he now presumably is out of the match for the remainder of the match. So let's not kid ourselves. I think we all know Austin is coming back real soon. Draw's working over on Edge. I'm not sure if anybody could possibly care, unfortunately. You know, Draws, if you don't know who Draws is, Draws, unfortunately, later on this year would be dropped on his head in a match with D'Lo Brown and break his neck, causing him to be paralyzed. Never, has still not walked to this day, which is really a shame. Edge draws into the corner, goes for a splash, draws moves. Big kick by Draws here, and they're really giving them a ton of time in there. Here comes a new entry. But Bruce Pritchard would always mention about Titan time, how they'd sometimes give you a 1-minute interval if they felt they needed a new guy in the ring, or if there was something that was unfolding, they'd give you 2 minutes, or if they were just short on time, it'd be 1 minute. Here comes Steve Blackman, as the snooze fest of the mid-card here in 1989 continues. So it's looking like, so they're still showing everything is all about Austin. They're showing this again, bringing the stretcher in to really kind of sell the idea that maybe Austin's done. And you know, again, let's not kid ourselves on this one. Let's see. Yeah, one of the deals they were doing at the time with Jerry Lawler was that he'd virtually pick everybody leading up to the Royal Rumble. So leading up to it would be Steve Blackman, it would be a variety of different people, and ended up being like nobody, you know, whoever was there, you know, anybody who was basically a part of the match, he would choose to win the Rumble. Let's see who's coming out here next to join the fray. Dan the Beast Severn, who had just returned to WWE after being out for a while with a neck injury. Severn would not last much longer, though, but he was doing a deal with him and Blackman where they would be fighting with each other. Because, of course, Severn is an Ultimate Fighter, just like Ken Shamrock. We never did get their match between the two in WWE, but Severn wouldn't be long for the taking. He'd be gone just a few months later. Blackman would have a good sustained run, though, as, again, now they're showing Austin being taken out in a stretcher, which is so surprising and too much. You remember that Austin, you know, this is a guy who, bleeding from head to toe, still walks out in his own power at WrestleMania 13. Now here he is being loaded into an ambulance. I mean, completely silly and way too much. This really is one of the stranger Rumbles here, at least thus far. They haven't shown anything going on in the ring. It's all just been, hey, here comes job guy that no one, I mean, mid-card guy no one can really care about. Now let's flip it back to the outside so you guys can continue with the Austin stuff. The amount of people outside is kind of strange. Why are there so many people randomly hanging out outside of the arena? It's like middle toward the end of the show, unless they're just there, I guess, for autographs or whatnot. Severn there, delivering knees to the gut and forearms over the back now to Blackman as a new entry's coming in, and it is Tiger Ali Singh. It felt like they tried stuff with this guy for years. They were doing he was elitist. He would call people in the ring to eat stuff out of Babu's feet and do things where he just tried to embarrass Americans. They were again showing Austin now being put into the ambulance and being taken away, really trying to set up the idea that he's not coming back. And they're even building up that Vince McMahon said Austin would have no chance in hell. Tons of fans outside the arena, though. I don't think they followed it. Tiger Ali Singh, I had even forgotten Tiger Ali Singh even lasted so long in the ring-wise, because, I mean, he was doing different things here and there. But to think about it, the fact that Tiger Ali Singh was still around 2 years later doing the deal with Lowdown, D'Lo, and Headbanger Mosh, saying that they belonged in the Rumble and they deserved a chance, that eventually went to Drew Carey. So he was in WWE for a long time and really never amounted to anything. Feels like another guy is just getting ready to come on out here. Looks like Edge about to eliminate Tiger. Draws coming up here behind Edge, but no, Edge recovers. So already now they've established this deal between Vince McMahon and Austin. The Blue Meanie. Wow, this is a who's who of people. Blue Meanie coming in there with the Job Squad outfit on. For those who don't know what the Job Squad is, Job Squad was made up of a bunch of undercard guys who were there basically making it clear they were there to do the job, J-O-B. And it was comprised of Bob Holly, Too Cold Scorpio, Al Snow, and the Blue Meanie. Now, Al Snow, eventually Bob Holly would become Hardcore Holly just 1 month later when he'd go for that Hardcore Championship and really establish himself as having an entity in WWE after many years of floundering on the undercard. He'd be replaced by Gilbert in the Job Squad. But I had forgotten about Blue Meanie's run here in '99 almost entirely. It's like they didn't do anything with the guy. I remember Blue Dust randomly being around and doing the Blair Bitch project with Goldust, but never really having much of anything going on. So it was surprising to see Blue Meanie. We've had 3 back-to-back here. I forgot Severn, Ali Singh, and Blue Meanie were even like anyone. I've watched all the shows. They were not ever mentioned on any of these Raws leading up to the show. Severn was, not the other two. Oh, wow, okay. So now they're showing that Mabel is there with Headbanger Mosh, and out comes Mabel. Now, this is the match and the part of history, if you will, that Mabel had returned earlier in the show, as I said, brought in by the corporation to give Mankind a tune-up match and kind of take him out. And now here he comes. Mabel making his return to WWE after several years away. And they had done a deal where Mabel basically is now back, and this is his first night back with the company. But leading up to the show, The Undertaker had really started to build up at some of the motivation for the Ministry of Darkness and was recruiting people for it. They did this really strange shit with Midian, where they had Midian kind of be sacrificed live on TV as Viscera dumps both Severn and Blackman. And Ali Singh, boy, he's the biggest babyface here, getting rid of all these personality sucks. Already another entry, so that's really quick. But Mabel, let's see who the next entry is. Up. It is the Road Dogg running into the ring. So, yeah, so Undertaker had basically been saying that, you know, they just had Mideon join the ministry. They had Mideon sacrifice live on Raw and actually started to levitate in an angle that was really creepy, where basically they legitimately chopped it. They at least made it look like they were legitimately chopping his chest, putting the Undertaker symbol into his chest. Far too much. And it really was. It was something that was just too much. And you can go back and watch that, but it's bizarre. And here he comes. Undertaker had said that there was going to be another sacrifice at the Rumble, and had built this up as he was going to be the next guy. He was going to pick a new guy to come in and be that guy who was sacrificed. And the Acolytes were already helping him. They were already there. Now, Mideon had just started. He was helping him. And here they go. Now, the Acolytes and Mideon are destroying Mabel. And basically, this is the show where Mabel becomes Viscera. Just a couple weeks after Mideon's transformation. And Undertaker's now staring at Mabel. Mabel wants no part of this. He's backing up. But Undertaker, in his really badass Ministry of Darkness outfit, comes out. And he's staring at Mabel. Eyes rolled to the back of his head. Mabel's trying to shake him off. And now he's talking to him, and Mabel really getting kind of creeped out by this whole thing. But this is the formation of the Ministry of Darkness. And it was one of these deals where Mabel, eventually, Edge, Christian, and Gangrel would all join the Ministry of Darkness as well. And then inexplicably, the Ministry of Darkness would combine with the corporation, forming the corporate ministry, which, if nothing else, did give us, as Bradshaw falls down and Road Dogg holds up the big DX thing, calling the next entry in there. And here we go. Road Dogg's hanging out there now, resting and kind of doing his thing. And here comes the next entry. And here comes Gangrel. So WWE is far, and obviously you could tell, they have a pretty thin roster. I mean, they're pulling out Tiger Ali singing the Blue Meanie in this. No offense to either of those guys. But they're pulling out all those guys. So pretty much everybody is doing double duty on this show. All of the male wrestlers who were there at the beginning are in the Royal Rumble match itself. I don't particularly love the idea of doing double duty. I always like when they have different people do different things. But it makes sense why these people would want to come back out if they could. Why not go for a title match at WrestleMania? Gangrel tossed out as if he was a job guy. They buried him something fierce on this show. But I did love when he came out, the guys in the front row having the time of their life, clearly old buddies, everybody rocking out and doing the Gangrel, dancing to his music there. Think about most of those guys are probably in their 50s at this point. Giving him crotch chops as he walks by. Those guys having the time of their life. They're the type of fans you want to see. Kurgan. Oddity. And again, everyone in the front row is doing the back and forth deal there. Wow. They're having the time of their life. You got to like that. That's cool. Kurgan laying out Road Dogg here. Who would have thunk that Kurgan would get a profile spot here in the Rumble? But I do think this is just their way of filling the ring back up. But boy, some of these entries are underwhelming to say the least. One of the things I remember about this time is that they were really building up the idea that Vince would be the guy to come out and that after the show, they were going live on the Home Shopping Network. This is the time period where WWE, after pay-per-views, would go live on the Home Shopping Network trying to sell specific merchandise that was specific to the... Oh, here comes another entry. It's Al Snow. Al Snow got the biggest pop of anyone who was not in DX during this match so far. It's like the crowd's just thrilled to chant for head. Everyone in that front row, some of the best fans around, doing the head thing, and everyone just stoked as all hell. Al Snow pummeling on one Kurgan here. Shout out to the Two Sweet Wrestling Podcast for giving us a little love and retweeting us over on the Twitter. Double teaming, trying to get rid of Kurgan now. This is way before the days of big surprise entries in the... Oh, Al Snow! Already dumped by the Road Dogg. Road Dogg's really getting quite the spotlight here during the this Royal Rumble here. He's been in there a while, and he's getting rid of a lot of people. Kurgan with one of the weirdest looking leather caps on his head. Here comes another entry. Let's see which weird gimmick from the 90s this guy is. Goldust, who's not a weird gimmick at all, actually. One of the best gimmicks of all time. Not going through a big high-profile part of his career, though, here. Late 99, 1999 Goldust, it kind of was just around, but he didn't really have much purpose. Though at least he can go in the ring. Now he's laying out Road Dogg. Now Kurgan coming over. By the way, they're announcing, as the announcers are saying, the only people left in this match are Golga, Kurgan, and Mr. Ass, as well as, and Road Dogg, as well as Mr. McMahon. And then they're doing a, saying that Austin is still in the match as well. Oh, here comes another guy. Oh, it's the Godfather coming out with some hose. Look at that. Look at the Godfather. Love it. So, yeah, they're bringing out Godfather. At least Godfather's fun. Godfather was still in the relatively early stages of the Godfather gimmick with the hose, at least. But was really coming into his own and becoming one of the more popular characters in the company. With the idea being he'd come out and, people would boom out of the building. And then if he came out alone, and then he'd call out the hose and he'd come out with the hose would do their thing. And that's pretty much that. By the way, if you watch this on the network, all of the closed captions are completely off. So you're being able to see everything way ahead of time. So I know the next entry is not a job guy, but it is Kane. So the deal here with Kane, he is now also a member of the corporate team. However, the only reason he's a member of the corporate team is because of the fact that Vince McMahon actually saved him from the insane asylum and now holds over Kane. He's being able to hold it over Kane's head that he needs Kane to basically do everything for him. So on the show right before the Rumble, Kane was set up to face The Rock, and Vince McMahon was basically telling him he was just going to lay down for The Rock. Shawn Michaels obviously set that up, the match between Rock and Kane. Vince told him, hey, you need to kind of do your thing. There goes the Road Dogg. Holy crap, did he get launched over the top. And there goes Kurgan like he's nothing. Godfather like he's nothing. Time probably not going too well for Goldust. He's choked and goozled and thrown over the top and down to the ground. He's out as well. Just Kane in the ring. And Kane was, people are into him, obviously. Kane was somebody who is still now in the corporation, but the idea was that now because he didn't listen to Vince McMahon, Vince now is sending out the white coats to get rid of him and put him back in the straitjacket to take him to the insane asylum. Because of the fact now he's throwing the straitjacket at the people from the insane asylum and having none of it. He just eliminates himself to run after them. Way to get Kane out of the match soon. As now you don't hear anything. Now everyone is eliminated from the match except Vince and Austin, who are not even a part of anything. So, way to get Kane out of the match quick. Looked like a complete monster, but he's obviously now maybe built the tension here between him and the corporate team. Here comes Ken Shamrock. Vince McMahon is back in the ring. Ken Shamrock's coming back. So, the idea here is that Vince McMahon went through the ropes at the beginning of the match, so he never got eliminated. So even though he's been out of the ring for the entire time, in the back, taking a break, not doing anything, he's still in the Rumble match. Through the entire show, if you've been paying attention, you can see the really brolic security guard kind of on the outside with the backward kind of leather hat. Which I thought was a storyline. I never really did. Now Vince is joining the guys on commentary during the match. He's again back outside the ring, and Shamrock's in there on his own. So they had a lot of these wrestling periods where just one guy in there. Where basically, the reason they do that was they were trying to continue the storyline between Vince and Austin. So they'd have somebody just hanging out in the ring while they just focused on the next level of the story between Vince and Austin. But yeah, Kane comes out. Kane, was obviously now being sent back to the insane asylum by Vince McMahon, and would stay in the corporation, but would be there kind of as kind of a secondary player. Here comes Billy Gunn with one shoe. What the fuck? And Vince McMahon's telling that how surprised he is to see Billy Gunn going in there with one shoe. Again, already, Shamrock's gotten rid of Billy Gunn again, kicking him directly to that ankle and being able to kind of get rid of that. But Billy Gunn looking good here, nonetheless, even on one foot, launching Shamrock into the corner. You can see, again, anything DX related, the crowd is super into. There's other entries coming into the ring. It's interesting to have Vince on commentary. Talking about, here's Test. All right, now they're showing him backstage. So much going on in this Rumble that has nothing to do with the Rumble match. Now they're showing outside. The crowd, Acolytes and Midian are still destroying Mabel, turning him into Viscera. This is kind of the start of that transition. And Undertaker's kind of watching on. And here comes an ambulance now returning as Vince's eyes are bulging up because as they're showing Mabel getting shoved into the hearse, here comes the ambulance back to the arena. Vince is noticing. He's doing the over-the-top type deal. Austin making his way back to the arena. Crowd is finally getting back into the match after a lot of, undercard guys. And Vince is looking like he's about to crap his pants as Stone Cold's coming back. Of course, he's returning where now you have two corporate guys in the ring and one DX guy, just Billy Gunn, does double low blow by Billy Gunn both guys. All three men are down. Another entry's coming in. Is it going to be someone worthwhile? Austin's making his way back in. But behind him is, as Vince takes off the headset, looks very nervous. The Big Boss Man. So now you've got Boss Man, Test, Ken Shamrock in the ring. McMahon's running around the outside. Austin's running after him. Austin now, Vince goes under the bottom rope towards the. Are you paying attention? This is the most insane, overbooked mess of a Rumble ever, looking back at this. I always had great memories of this, probably just because I was so happy Vince got the win. But Shamrock's tossed out by Austin. Austin now pummeling on the Boss Man. Boss Man pummeling on Austin. Bounty. I keep mentioning the $100,000 bounty placed on the head of Austin. Still there. Billy Gunn still wrestling with one shoe, one boot. Oh, Vince McMahon looking completely unhappy and shocked that Austin is back in the ring. King kissing his ass, asking if he can get him some water. Here comes another entry into the ring. One of the things I like about the Rumbles these days is that you're able to keep track as to how many other wrestlers are coming into the ring, because when each person shows up, it lets you know who's coming out. Here comes Triple H. Matter of fact, as I look at this and I look at Road Dogg earlier, I realized that the Triple H Road Dogg Battle Pack that was released with them both in DX attire, they're both wearing the attire from the Rumble 1999 show. Something I totally had forgotten about there. Triple H coming in like a house of fire. Very young Triple H. But Triple H is not the game here at all. We all expect the game to be super ripped and shredded and everything else. Not so much here today. At least back in 1999. Still a couple years away from that. For those of you guys just tuning in, you are watching Watchalong Wrestling. I do appreciate you guys checking us out here on a Sunday afternoon. We're in the middle of the Royal Rumble 1999 match, and we'll promise we'll get you out in time for kickoff, so don't worry about that. You can enjoy the rest of this match with me, and you can then get set for some football during the day. Ah, very cool. Austin laying down Billy Gunn now. Billy Gunn still with one shoe. This has to be the longest time anyone's wrestled like a full match just with one boot. And here comes the next entry, who is Val Venus. And basically the entire thing here is now Vince McMahon on commentary begging somebody to get rid of Austin. So they're really in the peak Austin McMahon deal. And after this would eventually set up just 3 weeks later St. Valentine's Day Massacre and the cage match between Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I think it's one of the really interesting things where they basically, and there goes Billy Gunn. I was liking Billy's whole reign in the ring with the one boot. Unfortunately, he's gone. Here comes another entry. X-Pac. With the exception of DX and the corporation, there really weren't that many people that mattered much in the 1999 WWE. Coming in there, going right after Test, helping out Triple H. So right now in the ring, you've got Bossman, Test, X-Pac, Hunter, Austin, Val Venus. Vince still in there on the outside doing commentary. Good Val, though, getting a little bit of a rub. He's destroying Austin in the match so far. I actually think Vince could have done a little more in rooting on each person, kind of like 92 Rumble where Bobby Heenan's doing commentary and just rooting for anybody who's going to get rid of someone else to make it a better situation for Ric Flair. I feel like he should have been cheering on Val like a madman here. Now they're mentioning, even Vince is mentioning that Austin went through the bottom rope. Austin now climbing it back over into the ring, onto the top rope with an axe handle down to X-Pac. And here comes another guy coming into the arena. And it is, let's see, coming into the ring. Sexual Chocolate Mark Henry. We're coming off just a week or two of him being revealed to kind of be doing the whole thing with Sammy and stuff that just does not age well at all. It wasn't good back then. Now it really doesn't age well. Just because of the, you know, the kind of the transphobic over vibes, the vibes of transphobia that are going on there. But Mark Henry, he was being built as a ladies' man and really wanted to be with Chyna. Then he was doing the stuff with Sammy. This eventually leads to his deal with Mae Young and giving birth to a hand. Following the bouncing ball of Mark Henry during the Attitude Era, this is a guy that clearly wasn't living up to his contract. He wasn't any good in the ring. He had no heat, no charisma, really. So they tried to just embarrass him. And I don't know if they were trying to get him to quit. I don't know what they were trying to do. But he stuck it out. And every time it looked like that was the end of his career, he'd find a way to make it back, and eventually did finally become champion some 15 years after the start of his run, which is unprecedented and unheard of. Took him 15 years, but he was able to get to that next level, which is pretty darn crazy to say the least. Here comes another entry. There you go. Jeff Jarrett with Deborah. And at the time, Deborah is becoming really over. As Jerry Lawler says, two things he likes about her. The entire era of puppies had become a big deal for Jeff Jarrett. I mean, become really big for Deborah. And in doing so, Jeff Jarrett, you know, that was his whole shtick, was every time he was out, at least Deborah was too. And people would really be into that. And they were building up that Jeff Jarrett actually had a tag title match the next night on Raw. It was going to be Shamrock and Bossman against Jeff Jarrett and Owen Hart. I'm assuming Owen's in this match too. We haven't seen Owen yet. We know Chyna's 30. Got to be getting close down to the nitty-gritty here as the ring fills up with a couple other people. And now X-Pac going over towards the big boss man there. And them talking about the $100,000 bounty that Vince McMahon is going to be giving, asking him if he's going to be paying cash. Time for another entry. Now they're really just getting people in there. And let's see how it is. It's D'Lo Brown. Led to the ring by the Pretty Mean Sisters, PMS, Terry Runnels, and Jacqueline. Why are they there with D'Lo, you ask? He's number 28, so I'm assuming it's Owen next and then Chyna. He's with them because they did a deal where Terry was pregnant. And during one of D'Lo's matches, he turned around and it scared Terry. She fell off the apron. She lost her child. So D'Lo felt bad now, so he was doing everything he could for Jacqueline and Terry, which included even fighting with Mark Henry on their behalf. Test out of the ring. X-Pac out of the ring. And all Vince is doing is just saying, come on, somebody's got to eliminate Austin. Would have been really interesting if somebody had. None of these guys, though, I'll tell you right now, none of them were close to the world title picture. None of these guys, D'Lo, Mark Henry, Val Venus, Jeff Jarrett, Triple H, Boss Man. None of these guys at this point in their career were ready for any sort of world title deal. Big chops, big woos from the crowd, even back in 1999. Triple H sending Mark Henry into the ring. Oh, big clothesline from Mark Henry, knocking down Triple H. I love how Jerry Lawler's so excited over every time Austin looks like he's about to be out, and Vince is just sitting there worried. He's not even caring. At least we have to hear Vince do commentary here. Showing Jeff Jarrett into the ring. Coming back around. Big Luthez press takes out Jeff Jarrett as another entry comes out. Guessing this is Owen Hart. Could be wrong on this. It is Owen Hart. He's got the big enough is enough deal. Up. Okay. All right. Looks like I got some computer stuff. Let's see. All right. Sorry, guys. I don't know if I was kicked off there for a sec. Looks like I'm back on now. And yeah. Sorry. Looks like I'm good to go. I had just done a different podcast right before this one. Me and my buddy Steve do a Disney podcast over at Disney 101. Vince, Austin taking some water, throwing some water all over Vince. Vince not happy at all. So they're just continuing their deal. Jeff Jarrett's out. Let's see. All right. Force quit. Yes. I see. All right. So that's kind of computer's prompting me to force quit application. So I apologize. There's only one person to come into the Rumble left, and that is going to be Chyna, which I'm sure is happening here at any second. And here she comes. And there we go. Coming still down to the DX music. Mark Henry's not happy. Chyna set him up, made him look like a complete fool. So that deal with the Sammy actually took place 2 weeks prior because the idea was that he was in the back with Sammy and Chyna, and they were trying to make him feel better about, I guess, having a low blow or whatever, something that happened in his match. And what ended up happening is Chyna ends up losing, going out for the corporate Rumble to win that, to become entry number 30. And in doing so, Mark Henry and Chyna tosses Mark Henry with ease, but Austin standing right behind her. And I think that's all she wrote for the 9th wonder of the world. There goes Chyna over the top. And Mark Henry's laughing at her. And Vince is just getting worried now. There's now 6 people left. D'Lo Brown, Triple H, Owen, Boss Man, Val Venus still in there, and Austin. Now finally Vince is starting to do, come on, Hunter, get him, as Hunter's giving him crotch chops and stomping the crap out of Austin. But that's how Vince should have been the whole time. It should have been anybody on top of Austin. He should have been cheering for him. Doug is the biggest fan. And he didn't do it as much as he should have, I feel like, during this match. This could have been one of the all-time great commentary performances by Vince. Look at that early Triple H versus Stone Cold in this match. Austin with a big, the Triple H with a big knee to the face there. About to throw Stone Cold over the top. Hunter working on him. See, oh, okay, so it makes sense. They're all fighting with each other because they all want that $100,000 bounty. And there goes Val. He actually had a good showing for himself. He lasted a while at least. Feels like he was in there the longest of anyone in the ring. Maybe Boss Man? Yeah, Austin eliminates Hunter. So it's down to the final 4. D'Lo Brown, Owen Hart, Austin, Boss Man. Vince McMahon looks like he's going to crap his pants. D'Lo with a big stomparoo over to Austin. Shiggy leg drop from D'Lo. to the throat of D'Lo Brown. Owen now threatening to throw Bossman over the top. Oh, true. Jerry Lawler is awesome here. He's sucking up to Vince, saying that he'd go take care of Austin for Vince, and he wouldn't even charge Vince the full $100,000. And Michael's trying to prompt him to go in and do it. Vince is saying, "Come on, boss man, don't let me down." Oh, they were saying he was Michael Cole was suggesting that the winner of this, if they eliminated Austin, would become an honorary member of the corporate team, and Vince was quick to say no, they get $100,000, and that's more than enough. The $100,000, in case you're wondering where that came from, was from the trust fund of Shane McMahon. What's funny about all of this, the entire show, is nothing stays still. Nothing lasts until tomorrow on Raw. You have a deal where the corporate team comes out. They're all celebrating because Vince wins the Rumble and Rock is the champ. Vince announces he's removed himself from the main event of WrestleMania so that Rock doesn't have to worry, and that at some point he'll pick his replacement. In doing so, they show Shawn Michaels and Austin up on the screen, live from San Antonio, looking like they're having the time of their life in a bar. And it's announced that since Vince removed himself from the match, Austin would now be the guy who would go over, because according to WWE rule book, the rules state that if whoever goes and wins the Royal Rumble couldn't come to there goes Owen Hart. It's down. And D'Lo, and they go ahead and it's down to Bossman and Austin. In any event, so Shawn Michaels says, due to the WWE rules, which are it's never been mentioned again, if for whatever reason the winner of the Rumble can't make it, the runner-up of the Rumble, D'Lo's still in there. I was wondering what happened to D'Lo. Low down over to Austin, and he's celebrating, and Bossman tosses D'Lo. Big Stone Cold Stunner to Bossman. And there goes Bossman. Down to the first two that it's been. Crowd is in a freaking frenzy. As now Austin's going over. Vince doesn't want any part. He's saying, no, 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 please. They're begging him off. Austin leaps over the table. Now Vince pummeling him. Really firing with some rights there to Austin as Austin's going after Vince. Somebody threw an entire thing, I think a popcorn or something. Throws Vince over into the barricade, into the crowd. The old-fashioned heads, the white heads that people would go get from stores that I was so upset that WWE never sold a mannequin head for you to go and purchase and bring to the show. I wanted it so bad. I didn't realize you could just go to any like beauty shop and purchase them there to bring them to shows. Big chair coming up here. Chair shot from Vince McMahon. I mean, from Austin to Vince. Enough of the chair shots. We've seen enough tonight. But I'm thinking Vince is going to take a big one right on the head. Oof. Terrible. Austin was going for the three-peat here. He had won the previous two Rumbles, obviously 97 with a bit of controversy, but then he won 1998. And now here he is trying to go for the third one. Obviously, it would not happen. But again, him and Shawn Michaels show up on the screen. It's announced that Stone Cold will be taking Vince's place. He's in the main event of WrestleMania. And then it's announced that the two will have a match with each other, Vince McMahon and Austin, in a cage at St. Valentine's Day Massacre 3 weeks later for Vince's last chance to prevent Austin from going to WrestleMania. So in one night, so not only that, but you also obviously the aforementioned Foley comes out and reveals the big tape, and it's revealed that they're going to have a rematch for the title at Halftime Heat. So again, it's just everything going on, and it moves 1,000 miles an hour, and you can't even sink your teeth into a storyline before it's changed dull the next day. Big low blow from Vince to Austin. They're in there together. And honestly, Vince is hanging in there with Austin. Got to give him a little bit of credit for that. I was a huge, big Stone Cold Stunner. I was a huge Vince and Shane fan. So even though I loved Austin, part of me was like on the low, pretending that I wanted Vince to get the W here. And when he did, I remember just losing my absolute shit at the age of 12 years old, and just the most excited I'd ever been, and loving the celebration. Austin with the knee off the second rope. And they're really going at it. And this is something, look how excited the crowd is. They're like, we just sat through 28 men. That meant absolutely nothing. But at least we're getting this. And here comes The Rock in his shirt and his chain with the title belt. And Austin sees him. Comes after The Rock. Looking at Rock. Begging Rock into the ring. And they're looking at each other. And right here, they're setting the stage for WrestleMania 15. Rock goes up to the apron. Austin goes after him. And who comes up from behind Austin? Vince McMahon. And you hear an entire gasp of no from the entire arena. And Mr. McMahon wins his only Rumble appearance. And look how pissed off Austin is. Selling it great.